Well, it's storming outside, the rains are flowing and flooding the earth, much like I'm sure a lot of you experienced over this past weekend, so it's time to head to the high ground and maybe just go to space. Let's talk about Ayreon with the brand new album, The Source, which the master of the concept album, really, Arjun Anthony Lucasen, returns with this disc, which is sort of the prequel. It's the precursor to every other album within the Ayreon catalog. This is pretty big stuff. We're almost getting the origin story of everything that you've heard up to this point. And I'm just going to tell you right out of the gate, that's about as much about the stories I'm going to get into. I may do some basic analysis of this here and there, but it's up to you to really read this. It's up to you to really digest this. I'm not baby stepping, holding your hand through that portion. I want to talk to you guys about the music specifically. And if you are in any way a veteran of Ayreon albums, you know that they are a cast list, a guest list that is a mile long, and this is definitely not one that is any different, with notable names such as Thomas Giles, James LeBray, Floor Jensen, being just three that illuminate this cast that has just so many more to really offer. Very much a power/progressive metal just haven. So if you like those two styles of music and you've not scoped out to Ayreon, well, here's your opportunity for a starting point. So this is a 2-disc set. It spans 17 tracks, but I like the way in which this was put together, considering both of these albums are under 50 minutes in length, which means that you have a real opportunity to digest what it is that you are going to hear. And this is a story that's split up into 4 distinct parts. So you get half of the story on the first disc and the other half with disc number 2. Again, expert decision. Really like how that was handled as well. And it starts off with a song like The Day That the World Breaks Down, which is a 12-minute and a half masterpiece to really begin this album. We have the entire cast, essentially, with the exception of one individual vocally on this song, basically precursoring everything that is going on within this story, understanding setting and understanding situation, really building the idea, the drama, and the conflict, really doing exactly what opening chapters of a novel are meant to do. They are giving you all of the cornerstone information that you absolutely require, and you're getting the basics as to why this story is important. The who's, the where's, the why's, and the how's start to take shape with this 12.5-minute long opener, which has dueling vocals that are soaring over top, frantic keys, tremendous guitars, and really this could be seen as one of the best songs that Ayreon has produced, perhaps in the 2010s, or perhaps even in the entirety of this project, as it just feels like it encompasses so very much and builds so many different emotions moving forward toward the next tracks on this album, really moving on within the story, that you just are instantaneously given a lot of great feeling, anticipation for what's coming up. If you remember from us talking about All That Remains, the difference between anticipation and apprehension whenever it comes to moving forward on an album, this is what that feeling of anticipation really is. It's whenever you have something this hype that you wonder how they're going to somehow eclipse it. But with Sea of Machines and Everybody Dies, which concludes the first part of this disc, we get more of the conflict. We start to understand the reasoning why there is a big-time problem. There is a crisis whenever it comes to the human race, and it is illuminated through a sort of offset bounce back between frantic music as well as some softer moments. Everybody Dies is a real fitting way to end part 1, considering it does have a harder edge to it. Instead of this being a track that is mournful in its tone, it's instead one that seems to build along a pillar of not only acceptance but realization that this is absolutely necessity. It's a necessary move that's being made, and once again, not trying to spoil the story too much. I really have to say that having a name such as Russell Allen play one of your pivotal members, a member of power in this case as the president, is certainly one that helps, considering that soaring voice is giving a lot more kinesis than perhaps you've gotten the opportunity to hear on a project such as Adrenaline Mob perhaps it's not been since the last Symphony X album that you've heard Russell Allen this dynamic, and it's one that cascades and works off of the other cast members also. So based around that, each of these tracks that feature Russell, and really you have to also give Thomas Giles a lot of credit as well, considering you don't hear that, insane chaos from Between the Buried and Me. You instead hear his softer variety. You instead hear that clean voice. You hear the way in which he's able to project and deliver lines and deliver great vocal performances. You have to give a lot of praise to that, and then you also have to give praise to Floor and the female vocalists that are providing a lot of conflict as well as backbone. Really delivering the moments where all of these castmates are able to harmonize together. It is it's an Ayreon tradition. Don't get me wrong, but it is beautiful. It is something that certainly builds that sort of chill factor. It's what causes the hair on your arms to raise. Moving on to the second part with Star of Sira and all that was Run Apocalypse Run and then Condemned to Live. This is where you're starting to understand where the wheres and the whys and the how of the story even more. It's delivering your reasoning, it's delivering a new setting, and it does have that feeling of urgency as well as a tremendous emotional register of pain sort of being offset by that feeling of need, of desire, of drive, Once again, like stated with Everybody Dies, this is a very necessary move that was made by the castmates that we heard. Once again, trying not to get too deep into the story, but you also recognize that little bit of a human factor, and you start to recognize that these are still human beings that we're talking about, and that is a critical part, considering that is not going to completely be the case, as there's going to be a bit of a morphology once you reach the second disc. Again, you have to just love the way in which the keys swirl, the bass thumps, the drums are able to provide just enough guide work, and then the guitar work is handled masterfully by Arjun and a illuminating cat. This is just really well constructed work, and Ayreon has always been known for that. This is not something that's brand new for this band. However, this feels so focused, and I think it was because this was a project that originally it was sort of unclear that it was going to be an Ayreon album. It was one that morphed very organically, and once that morphology started to take place, it was whenever the recognition was there that this was perfect for what Ayreon was all about. Moving to the second disc with Aquatic Race and The Dream Dissolves. First off, Aquatic Race sort of gives you a little bit of information as to where these people have potentially had to go and what they've needed to do in order to survive. And with The Dream Dissolves, you also gain one of the best guitar solos, one of the most passionate and beloved guitar solos that you're going to find on this album. I believe it came from the gentleman from Sun Caged, and it was one that I guess the original take was not one that was very well received, so Anthony was able to push him a little bit more, and what was delivered was a masterpiece. This was one that's really hard to get past, considering it's so well done. You sort of want to go back and revisit it. Then you get into Death Cry of a Race, Into the Ocean, and Bay of Dreams, and you get into the tail end of Part 3 into Part 4, and you are now getting sort of the reestablishment factor of these new beings, these beings that are human but have adapted, thanks to science, to survive in a brand new environment, and have also found ways to forget, which means that their humanity is starting to strip away a little bit, even though it does come back in waves here and there. That trace is slowly but surely fading away, and the conflict that was tugging at their heartstrings is becoming a distant memory, which can be a bit of a metaphor of how we handle grief and how we aim to try to push forward, but it's also a metaphor for how technology and how what we aim to do to try to pass through the grieving process, sort of forget and just ignore, is sometimes a dangerous thing. We're getting warnings also as this music is beginning to conclude, as we're getting to the end here, the Journey to Forever and the Human Compulsion, as well as March of the Machines, that something big is coming, and this is a direct sequel or at least it has a connection to the last album. So we're almost going in reverse a little bit in Ayreon chronological order. So we could be, and this is where you're going to see perhaps a couple of tie-ins between those two albums, leading March of the Machines directly in to the first track of that previous affair. Wow. This is a lot to digest, and it's not something that's easily done considering there is a huge revolving door of cast, and you are hearing them so often on this album. It's one that feels very much like that heavy metal play or that heavy metal, showcase that Ayreon has become very known for. On some past albums, we've seen an even wider cast, but they are used more sparsely. These are individuals that are used in nearly every track, or at least have a very key component or a key idea that is really explored throughout this album, and it's because of some of the story that's really spins around it. Each person within this cast is a member of this race that has survived, that has left everything behind, and so each one of them have a very important story to really tell. And it's one that's also beautifully sort of built upon by the music that surrounds it, which gives it an excellent little boost up based off of that. If you thought the vocals by themselves were fantastic enough, you need to really pay more attention to the music that really is the building block, because this is prog that's done with an expert fingertip. It's one that has a lot of heart and really dictates not only pace, but emotion, feel, tone, and as you might imagine, since this is a concept album, the flow of this is tremendous. It is something where you can easily forget that you are listening to one song and then realize that it is blended into the next part of the part that you're listening to. So that was a really confusing sentence. This is a great experience. A lot of people in 2016 talked about the Astonishing by Dream Theater with one of two ways, one of two philosophies. One was that it was overly ambitious and fell flat on its face, and the second one was that it was overly ambitious and really took an acquired taste in order to really appreciate and beloved it. This is an album that does not suffer from that dual philosophy idea. It's instead one where you're immediately going to be captivated by this album. They start this disc with one of the biggest moments that you're going to really get and garner on an Ayreon album, and it's just something that never takes its pulse off. It grips you. It keeps you really grounded within its level of the story. It reminds me a little bit more of what we got from Avantasia last year as opposed to Dream Theater, in the fact that its focus really kept you within its universe. This is a 27 out of 30 album, one that's absolutely essential. I feel that whenever you get to the second part of this, and by that I mean the second disc, some of the songs are not quite as memorable as you're getting on the first disc, and because of that, it may feel like there is a definite winner between the two, but the storyline that embraces it is sort of what is the saving grace here. You start to recognize just how much each and every part is meaning toward what this future is going to be, what's being built, or what everything is sort of coming down to. And based off of that, it's a very forgivable thing that perhaps not every song has a terrific guitar solo like The Dream Dissolves, or an amazing vocal performance from the entire cast, such as The Day That the World Breaks Down. All in all, the Source is worth every penny, and it's worth every minute of the listen. But I want to know what you guys think. I want your thoughts on The Source. Is The Source the cure for the modern day prog album? Is Ayreon delivering us a manifesto that's showing some of the other bands out there how it's done? Let me know in the comments below. My name is coverkillernation. And it's funny because whenever I started recording this video, the heavens had opened and the rain was pouring down. I could hear the thunder in the distance. But now, I end this video with calm. I'm not saying I did that. It just ended. I'm not that godly. Bump y'all. See ya.